Well, nice to be here, Ozzie. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
During the day of today, the whole point is to understand more about your regional center, your profile. You have fantastic experience in EB-5. Everybody in the industry knows your name and last name, Osvaldo Torres. More on the SEC side, doing all of the offerings. I know you're one of the most reputable in the industry. No?
Thank you for such kind words.
No, it's true. So tell us a little bit about you.
So I've been practicing corporate and securities laws for 38 years, since 1987. At the end of 2009, I was introduced by an immigration lawyer friend of mine to my first EB-5 deal. And then that was at the end of 2009. And since then, I have been immersed in EB-5 and I've done a lot of EB-5 deals. I mean, probably over 500 offerings, you know? So it's been a beautiful ride. And of course, we went through the big 2015 ride and all that stuff. You know, SEC is what I do for a living. And then more recently, a good friend of mine that owned this regional center, Marty Cummins, a wonderful man. You know, he needed some help. The new legislation, the Reform Act, it really makes regional centers completely accountable for everything having to do with securities compliance. That's a very big step. Now, I've said it many, many times at many seminars and other speaking engagements that I do, that really the Reform Act didn't really add anything new, because regional centers always had that responsibility, right? We have to remember that a regional center, its designation says that you are basically giving a license to conduct EB-5 activity, and it's under your umbrella. It's your license.
Yes.
So now a regional center like ours, which is done, you know, again, since 2010, we've done over 70 projects. I've had over 600 investors process through our center. That's all pre-RIA, okay? Pre-Reform Act.
Wow.
Since the Reform Act, we've had 14 projects.
Wow.
You know, 10 of them received EB-5, the 956F approval within months.
Let's walk a little bit back, you know, so let's go to the basic. What is a regional center? I mean, how you form a regional center? What is the purpose of having a regional center within the EB-5? You know,
Sure. I used to be in broadcast law, which means that, you know, you basically get a license to conduct television or radio activity. It's a license. I view a regional center exactly the same way. The government, USCIS, gives you a license to conduct, as I mentioned before, EB-5 activity to promote investment in the EB-5 space, right? So in EB-5, and you basically are able to apply to create a regional center. You're given a designation regarding the area that, you know, your regional center is authorized to cover. And then either you go out as a regional center and sponsor your own deals, or like us, we affiliate with only reputable developers and projects that, you know, we know are counseled by the top attorneys in the field, have the best business plan writers and economists. And at the end of the day, that's really your best protection, right?
Yeah, in the market, I understand the concept of a regional center sometimes is confused with just that entity or that company that is in the field looking for EB-5 investors and raising EB-5 money, but not so much on the back end of what you do. It would be interesting, and because you are an SEC attorney and you're working on the offerings, it will be interesting to understand the different players on an EB-5 investment.
Sure. So like I said, you know, the regional center is the entity that is empowered, licensed to conduct EB-5 activity. That regional center could take two forms. It can either go out and do its own deals, which, you know, some of the big regional centers do.
Yes.
Or like ours, we basically enter into agreements with projects, so-called affiliation agreements or project sponsorship agreements, and we basically delegate our right to conduct that activity to the new commercial enterprise or to the fund, right? The EB-5 fund. So in that case, the EB-5 fund is the entity that, goes out and raises the money. They conduct the offering. But again, like I said before, the regional center is the one that has to certify that fund is doing everything in compliance with SEC laws. So it's very important that projects that do rent regional centers associate with regional centers that know what they're doing and have that experience on the compliance side. Okay.
So basically, we're splitting the two jobs. One is looking more into the compliance on the RC and all related to keeping your license or certification. And then on the other side, you're just working or married with EB-5 funds such as us,
Exactly.
which are more in the capital raise. But at the end, it's like two different entities and two companies married together with the same purpose of doing whatever is according to the compliance.
I actually think that the rental center model may actually be better, because when you do have that separation between the NCE and the RC is going to play that very important role that it must play because it's required to do, which is to check, right? That the project is doing everything right. And again, like I said before, for a regional center, for anybody to certify that some third party is doing securities compliance correctly is a big step. And so we take that very seriously, and we're fortunate that we have the know-how and good affiliates, honestly.
Yes. And this is important because, I've been also in the EB-5 business since 2010, 2011, And I remember at the very beginning when we started in this industry that we used to form an RC per project basis. So you had a new deal, you put the RC, you put the NCE all together for just that deal. And then we move to the next project, we do another RC per that project. And I remember the offering docs were like 100 pages.
Right.
Really thin, really small. Send it to USCIS, get that I-526 approved in 3 months, But now, the compliance and just to be updated in what's happening, what we have to do on the EB-5 fund, I wouldn't be able to do that. You have to have somebody that understands, an attorney that is really related and understands the law just to do with the compliance. So at least on my business, having that business separated, one looking at everything on the compliance side, and the other one, which is us raising the capital, I think it works really well, At least on my side, I'm affiliate with your RC because of your profile. Now, you understand EB-5. You come from the EB-5 world. You just got into the RC by making this partnership with Marty Cummins, no? Why that step?
It's a good question, right? Obviously there's always exposure to risk, right?
Yes.
But I knew Marty for a long time, and I knew that Marty needed help, and I did see an opportunity to help, and that's why I did it, honestly. And at first it wasn't about taking over or anything like that. It was about helping a friend. And so I stuck my neck out and I helped him, and it's worked out really well, mostly because we have a great manager with us, which is Beatriz Toledo, and she is really the brains of the operation. She has got control over every paper, over every piece of document. And again, the regional center's main purpose is to ensure that the funds have been deployed, into the project.
Yes.
Right? To ensure that there's a paper trail of the funds, to ensure that all the documents and all the record keeping that is a requirement that has to be submitted to USCIS on a yearly basis, that all of that is taken care of. And so in a way, it's a beautiful partnership when you have a great affiliate that, they do what they do and they do it in compliance with the law. And we check that and verify that, and then also able to maintain all the record keeping that's required.
Yes, and I know that just post IRA, you guys went on a USCIS audit, and you got recertified your RC, And I know Beatriz was working like 24/7.
Yes.
It was a difficult process, right? I mean, it was an intense process, a lot of paperwork, a lot of compliance, and all taken down really well.
When I tell you that it was a tremendous task.
Yeah.
So first of all, we were one of the first regional centers to be audited. The audit requirement just was a new thing, and I'm aware of like 2 or 3 other regional centers that were audited around the same time. So honestly, nobody knew anything as to what to expect. But we did know that we needed to get, all the project information together, because honestly, a lot of times, that wasn't done as well, because under the prior law, there was no similar requirement. But now it's actually codified and you're required to do it. And we were able to get that done, and we passed the audit with flying colors in a very quick period of time.
When you talk about compliance, and the to-do list that you have to do on checking that the EB-5 fund or the NCE or the responsible to raise the capital facing the investor, let's say, what is it that you require? I mean, what is that process? It's called 956G. What is it that you need for? What is the data? What is the daily process?
When we take on a project, okay, and there's an offering that's going to be conducted, we just don't sign and accept it. We review all of the offering work. We review every single formation document. We kick the tires and do our own due diligence, okay? So we make sure that you have the documents that you say you have, that your offering materials contain the information that needs to be there, and that copies of all material agreements. So we go through an entire due diligence process, again, because we're required to ensure that there's compliance. So that's the only thing you could do. And like I said before, the next best thing that we can make sure happens is that the project is represented by experienced EB-5 counsel, whether it's securities, whether it's immigration, and also with the best economists and business plan writers.
Yes. On our side, whenever we have a new project, we engage an attorney, an SEC attorney, to do the offering, right? And they do their work. And then now we engage with the RC. And now you come and actually review what has been done in compliance. So it's another step of a review process, no? And not only that, it doesn't end there. Every time we have to do updates, and then you come and also review and approve, and it's not just DRC, it's who you are. I mean, it's different from probably any other RC that doesn't have somebody with your profile inside RC. That's what, for me, it's important. You understand the law, you have been in the offering side for such a long time. Your review, it's really important. It brings a lot of value for us and our investors. And then again, it doesn't stop there. You have engaged now a new project, you approve, you engage with your project, and we go out and raise and find EB-5 investors. But our daily relationship continues, no?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, because the first step is checking the documents. And the next step, you have to remember that this is a breathing, living, live offering that's going to go on for some period of time. And then even once it's over, right, you still have a relationship with your investors, of course. Do you know who owns those investors? The regional center.
The regional center.
Yeah. It's like your doctor, right? And that's why I'm going to take care of it and make sure that the process continues, because again, as a securities lawyer, I can't emphasize enough, right?
I know.
What it means to say that somebody is going to look at your stuff and say, okay, it's good. For an SEC attorney to even get close to being able to say that, that's a big deal.
And the beauty is that person checking is not inside the EB-5 fund.
Right.
So it's two separate companies making sure that what we're doing, it's the right thing to do, no?
Sometimes people find it annoying, right? That you have some other lawyer or some other check, right? But at the end of the day, I've done a lot of deals where yes, they can be very complicated, they can be strung out, they could be difficult, but every time you have another person that is competent
Correct.
and is able to review the work, the ultimate product is better. So even though it's painful sometimes, because no lawyer likes their work checked, right?
Yes.
And but we've done it a lot with many good firms, right, including yours. And you find things no matter what.
Can we talk about what is having a project approved? The investors understand, they usually ask, is the project approved? In reality, what they're asking if the 956F is being approved. What is that process?
So before the new law, there was no notion of having a project approved. Now you could file an exemplar, that had some precedential weight, but it wasn't binding, right?
Yeah.
Now the beautiful thing is that if you file your 956F project approval application and that gets approved, that means the investors only have to file their individual related information.
Correct.
Their source of funds and things like that. So the project's approved. So once you get to that point, and like I said, we've had the good fortune of having quite a few projects approved very quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe that has to do with the audit, by the way, right? Because we were audited, so it's all good. Getting that F approved is very meaningful. Theoretically, it means that the project is shovel ready. In real estate, that has a certain meaning, right? You have your financing in place.
Yeah.
You're basically ready to go.
You're basically ready to go, yes. I mean, there's good chances that everything will go well on the project side.
Right.
Yes. And now, so we have the affiliate done, you have the new project or the new NCE or the new EB-5 fund raising capital, affiliate to you, and now we go out and we start pushing investors into the NCE. The money will go to the JCE, which is the project itself, to spend and generate jobs. And then we give you reports. How long does that relationship last? I mean,
it's as long as the investor cycle is going on. So it could be pretty long. That's why I think investors need to, be comfortable with the regional center, of course.
Correct.
Obviously, they're comfortable with the project. Otherwise, they wouldn't have invested. But yes, we have to take care of them for a long time.
On the 956G, what kind of data do we need to provide? I like to say like this when I explain it to investors. Before they file the petition, the I-526, basically USCIS is looking at the source and the path of funds, of how they got the money until the filing. And then from the filing on, it's the responsibility of the EB-5 or the NCE to compile all the information of tracking where the money is being spent, right? And then we give it to you, and that goes into USCIS. So USCIS wants to have a full picture from the moment how the money was actually sourced to where it's spent. So there's a lot of data there that we share with you that we need to pull now from the developer side. No?
The whole reason why we have this new law was because, unfortunately, some projects, took advantage of investors and they didn't do the right thing. So being able to trace where money goes is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so, you were talking about a yearly reporting requirement, but as you know, we do quarterly check-ins, right? And so we want to make sure that we're in touch with our affiliates and that we have all the data on a current basis. And that's why, as we experienced with the audit, we're required to maintain a live database of all the documents, right? The subscription agreements, the offering documents, the flow of funds, bank statements, etc., right? Escrow releases.
Yeah.
All of that is maintained. That's how you can try to make sure that the money went where it's supposed to go.
And in that sense, I like to say that probably the way I see it and our advantage is now being in the middle between the RC and the developer, but also owning or managing the developer side where the jobs are created, it allows us to pull the data. We don't depend to a third party or a developer or a JCE now to send me that information, because most of the data that is required is where the money is spent. But that's actually on the JCE side.
Yeah. I just want to say that I know from our experience with you, right? You have been one of the best record keepers and most compliant affiliate that we have. So we really appreciate that. And that's not coming from me because I really don't do that level of work, but it's coming from, like I said, the genius behind the curtain, which is Beatrice. And she's always mentioned how timely you are and how accurate you are.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're all flow-throughs of information. The regional center in this case, right? We're depending on you as the NCE. But since you're also an affiliate of JCE, you're not dependent on some third party to get you that vital information that sometimes, is hard to get.
I mean, having that relationship between the NCE and the JCE, being the same people behind, again, is life. It's not just the first year, the second, the third, the fourth. On the project side, especially real estate, eventually you may realize that the project was sold down the line.
Right.
No? But now still, you need data 5 years from today. On the 8-9 approval, you still need data to show to USCIS or your yearly report. But the fund has changed. So having that possibility of being on both sides, it gives a lot of confidence.
Let me add a little color to that. So historically, the problem has always been with the affiliated NCE and JCE, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it's good that you're affiliated and that you have access to the information. On the other hand, the problems in the industry have occurred in those spaces. The good thing here is that you audit both the NCE and the JCE.
Correct.
Now, you're not required to do both. And the law says it says NCE or JCE.
Yeah.
Of course, the audit of the NCEs should be pretty simple.
Yeah.
Because there's not that much going on there.
It's the best.
But an audit of the actual project, that's very serious.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you're doing both says a lot.
Exactly, because at the end, when we explain to the investor that we are the developer and the NCE, the reason why we're doing this is because first of all, we can make sure that the money is spent. Whenever we are telling the investor the money is going to be spent, it's the same people, right? And secondly, we're doing audit, and Baker Tilly is doing the audit on both sides, and that goes into USCIS and it goes into you. Incredible job that you need to have behind on you.
It's another job.
It's another job. Sometimes investors, for example, South America, Vietnam, they move different than what we do here in the United States. For example, in Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, South America, the notary is really important, So whenever they're ready to invest, one of the questions is, when do we go to the notary? What do we sign? I said, well, no, that's not the way we do it. No, we just do everything by email. And they don't feel that there is a kind of a strong document or investment document that can secure their funds. It's like, okay, I'm giving you 100,000, but I'm signing this on my house and DocuSign or whatever is the case. You're the guy to explain them. How strong is that document? How the different parts. Can you tell us about this?
Sure. Some of these countries, of course, are used to a formal, clerk who notarizes, and that makes it legitimate, right? We don't depend on that necessarily, but what we do depend on is having a document that contains all the material information necessary for an investor to make an investment, right? So we're talking about making an investment decision. And before an investor can make an investment decision under the U.S. securities laws, they have to be provided with, all the information necessary to make that decision, including the fact that there's no information that's missing. If you're building something and you're soliciting investors to go into that project, and you don't disclose that, there's an environmental dump underneath that building, well, that's going to be very expensive to clean up. And so now you have a situation where a material disclosure was not made. So the whole purpose of the PPM is to ensure that investors have all of the information they need to make an informed investment decision. That's really critical. Those who read never invest, and those who invest never read. What's the important part about those who invest never read, those who read never invest? It's all relationships, right? At the end of the day, somebody really trusts you. That doesn't mean that you don't have good documents, because the documents are there to protect the project and the investor, right?
Yeah.
So, but most people make an investment decision based upon the person that they're dealing with.
Correct.
Right? Obviously, they're gonna also, look at the project and make sure the project works, but the project could work and they don't like the person or they don't trust the person.
Exactly.
And there's not going to be an investment, right?
Yeah.
You don't need an agreement until you need one.
Yeah.
And then when you need one, you better hope that it's very clear.
Yeah.
Because when things are not clear, that's very much a legal expense.
Yes. Can you, let's say, define what is a PPM?
Under the U.S. securities laws, no one is permitted to solicit to ask for money for an investment unless they have all the information that they need to make that investment. Is a selling instrument. It's the only vehicle pursuant to which you can sell a security. It's important that it's done well, because ultimately it's about protecting the project. And by protecting the project, you're protecting the investors.
EB-5 is getting really competitive, and also the investors out there, they understand more and more every day about what is EB-5 now. And I think the best tool for them to do the due diligence, it's reading the PPM. I mean, there's a lot of risk factors in there and everything, but as you say, the whole picture, it's in there. But in addition to a private placement memorandum or PPM, there are other components, right? The limited partnership agreement, the business plan, the eco job. How they connect each other?
So the PPM, it's not an agreement. It's just a disclosure document. And it discloses stuff about the management of both the NCE and the JCE, right?
Yes.
It also describes the rights and obligations that the investors will have. The key thing to remember is that the rights really are contained in the limited partnership agreement or the operating agreement. And all the PPM does is describe, right, what those things are. But a PPM itself, it does not necessarily give you any rights, okay? All your rights derive from the underlying operative documents.
This is great. I think this is a lot of information for the investor. And I like to say, in US, the small point matters. Sometimes when they're doing their due diligence, if I was on the EB-5 side, and understanding what I understand today about EB-5, I think it's also important who is the one writing the PPM, because USCIS has specific ways to see it. You have to tell the whole story. If you don't disclose everything, then maybe just because of that, you probably will not be approved.
Right. As I mentioned early on, when we look at a project is, okay, who is heading it and who's their team? Because you have to make sure that team has the experience. Sometimes people try to save money and they go out and hire people that don't have the experience. And actually, it doesn't save you money. It creates a lot of issues, and it probably creates a lot of exposure. So you don't really want to do that.
All right. Thank you, Ozzie. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice to be here.
So nice for you to be here. And well, that's it.